how does an agent coming in know how things are going to look? So I took multiple hours and I put together a flow chart that kind of shows you, hey, when you come into Keller Williams Largemont, here's your experience and here's what you have access to and here's where you're going to go. So let me go ahead, because what I did is I broke the flow chart up into 2 pieces to make it easier to read. So at the top, Joey is our team leader. And I'll have a slide a little bit later that breaks down exactly how that breaks, how the office breaks down into who's involved in what. But Joey is the leader. So I'm the one who answers to Joey. And by the way, Joey and I are good friends. And so it's very collaborative and really like that. And then you might have heard of Sonia. Sonia is a coaching agent who's in another office, and she provides a lot of resources. So things that come from her are the additional resources that you can utilize. But I'm the one that's in charge of KW Largemont coaching. And so that's why I'm working directly with KW Largemont. Cam, who you probably already met, is with agent services, and he's the one that services the agents and their needs. So Cam and I work very closely together with a lot of the coaching program and what needs to happen and what needs to take place. So then you come into KW Largemont, yay! And you're signing all your paperwork and getting all that stuff done. And that's the person, Cam, is the one that helps you with that. Then we have an app that Cam has developed called Connect Team. And that will actually help you electronically integrate with a lot of things. So the app will be on your phone or your iPad or your Android phone or whatever you choose. And you can go ahead and work with that. But then also you can log in just on a website too. So feel free to use your computer as well. Usually at that point, I send an intro coaching email and just outlines a few things in there as an intro. And then you watch this video, the one we're recording right now. And it kind of explains how coaching works and what's involved in it and all the different resources that are available. And then a lot of times, if you'd like, we can just do a brief, like 15-minute call, get to know each other a little bit and go from there. So after all that, you know, it's like, well, are you excited about coaching? Well, yes, of course you are. So then we go ahead and sign the contract. You're in a business where things are all about contracts and disclosures and so on. So we're doing some of the disclosures now. And when you're in the process, you sign the contract. So that brings you into coaching. When you sign the contract, you can see the little arrow carried. When you sign the contract, that's when we kind of open up the floodgates. And first is that I send out usually weekly emails, and that will have pertinent information about what's coming up during the week, and it'll have different resources in there and so on. Some of it you may send it in there and it's like, well, Rob, that was in there last week. That's right. Do you realize that the human brain only retains about 20% of something that is presented to them? So if we present it over and over again, pretty soon we'll hit 100%. So the idea is I even have in there stuff like our preferred inside vendors. And you're like, oh, what's an inside vendor? Good question. That's what we cover in coaching. But for instance, like we have a title rep in there and they're from Clearmark Title. So that information I try to make available to you all the time. Plus the times that we meet in there are also in there, and anything may be pertinent coming up that coming week. Then we go ahead and we talk about if you need orientation in the coaching beyond what just the intro is. But in addition to that, then we talk about how the Connect Team, that app, how it can start to get customized for you. And that will go into a little bit more into when we look at maybe what some of your goals are. And then also you immediately get access to all the PC coaching resources. So if you drop down, and I try to color code everything to make it a little bit easier, when you drop down into that, we have sometimes recorded content. And that content can be a number of different things. It can be like, oh, well, how do you lead generate? It can be anything from how do you do, like I mentioned, the GPS, which, by the way, GPS stands for Goal, Priority, Strategize, and then 411. And just a brief overview of that, because by the way, if you look on the other side, that's one of the coaching sessions. The GPS happens to be the idea that you set a goal, and then what you do is you prioritize what are going to be the top 3 things that will help you reach that goal. And then you strategize, which is the S, And then that will help you to figure out the 5 things that will help you get to that goal. Then you take those 5 things, and that breaks down into your what's called a 411. And the 411 will help you break down in 1 month what is the one thing you're going to do every week that's going to help you reach that goal. And basically, you record that in your calendar. So you have this big goal that you want to reach. And now you've broken it down into, well, here's what I'm going to do every day this week to reach that goal. And it makes it very, very simple to follow. And then you know if you're reaching what you actually want to reach for. The way of doing that is one of the recorded things that I share. We have those different resources in there. We also have marketing emails. You will start to get a lot of emails from me that will just have different marketing material. And it can be anywhere from, oh, how does a buyer right now compete to get their offer accepted? What's the best way for sellers to market their home in the winter? What is the projection of interest rates? How do homeowners have more wealth than renters? All of these different things that can be examples of what I send out. They're all designed for you to easily copy and paste. You can put it in your newsletters. You can put it in your social media. You can text it directly to people. You can send it an email blast, any of those things that you can use it for. So you automatically get those things. As I get them and I see them as relevant, I will send them to you. By the way, that's one of the benefits too, is that we get a lot of information like that, and then figuring out, well, what's relevant to our market here? Well, when I go through it, I can see what's relevant, what's not relevant, and I'll pass on the stuff that's relevant so you automatically know. Another one is that I actually pay for a service that quarterly releases buyer and seller guides. These things are a lifesaver because what they do, they're really good looking materials. You can send it out as a PDF, or if you print it, let me give you a few tips. You print it on nice paper, you print it off of a laser printer. We have really nice printers here at the office. So if you need to, you can use those printers. And you use some sort of binding system. And we even have a binding system here at the office. So it's a nice professional presentation. But those guides will go ahead and, as they kind of give you a hint, if you're a buyer, they kind of help you understand, okay, what is it going to be like to buy a house? What are the things you need to prepare for? And what are the steps involved? Seller, same thing, except you're selling a home. But because they're updated quarterly, it's not stagnant material. So what I mean by that is something that was created in 2001, and oh, this is your buyer guide, and oh, but it's created for any time in the market. These are not developed that way. These are developed and they're updated quarterly. So it's what the current market is. So for instance, right now we're in a seller's market, and because we're in a seller's market, well, what does that mean? Well, to the buyer, it means some things, and to the seller, it means some things. And then the guides are geared to that. So that way your clients understand exactly what they will need. That's one of those things. Another thing is that Keller Williams is part of a group of offices, and they're called Forward Wilshire, by the way. Here's some things that I'm giving you some tips that when I first came to this office, I kind of learned. And we even have our own marketing division called Forward Marketing. Well, they put together a listing presentation that you can have customized for yourself. But I struck a deal with them, and I went ahead and modified the one that they created for me that I really liked, and I made a generic version of that. Well, the great thing about it is that it's a page turner. It's very easy that you can go ahead, and every time you turn a page, it has a different topic on that page, and then you can just talk about it and move on. Talk about it and move on. It's beautifully laid out. And if you have it printed, again, on nice paper at our office and bind it, it's a great presentation to leave with people. And it is tagged to Keller Williams Larchmont. So the nice thing is that even though it's kind of generic, at the same time, it's specific to this office. So when you present it, it is coming from you. And it really has that feel like it's not just something you bought off the internet. So that's one of the other things you also have access to. And another thing is lead generation resources. So what do I mean by that? Well, you have to generate your own business. So then what are some things you can do to help you generate that business? Those are some of the resources that are provided. And those come at different times, just depending on the different times of year. There's one way of lead generation that takes place that we call them pop buys. And that means that you stop by somebody's home and you drop off something cute and sweet. And it's not really the gift that you're giving them that's the big deal. It's the conversation starter. because 75% of your deals are going to come from people you already have a connection with in some way. Now, they may be a deep relationship or somebody you met somewhere, but you already know these people. And if that's the case, if there's any way that you can deepen that relationship, that makes you front of mind. So when anything comes up with real estate, they will utilize you first because they thought of you first. And they think of you primarily because you're always sharing real estate information with them. They will remember that, but you also have a relationship with them. So for an example, one of the things may be, I have one that has a little coffee on the front and it says, I really appreciate you, a latte. Okay, I know it sounds hokey, but the great thing is that you can make it and you can take it to them and it's kind of cute. And if you have a little bit of a budget, I would say you can attach a coffee gift card for $5 to it and just stop by their place. Hey, here you go. If you don't have a big budget, then make it cute. Buy some coffee beans and actually hot glue gun the coffee beans to this little piece that I send out and then take it there. So that way it's still kind of cute, but now it's not costing you really a lot of money. So these are some of the ideas that it allows you to deepen those relationships, which will end up becoming your lead generation. Those are some of the resources that you'll have access to. Now, when we go on the other side, in the more the teal color, we also have coaching sessions. And what does that mean? Well, first is we do, and I mentioned the GPS 411, we have that once a week, and we have that session. Now that one isn't recorded because people are sharing what's going on in their business. And so then that's your information, and it's a group call, but we try and address everybody in there. If it's just a few people in there, we can sometimes focus more. If we have more people in there at once, then we go through things maybe a little bit quicker. But what we do is we try and look at what your goals are and what can help you to reach those goals. And it's one thing too, when you walk through a video and you're like, okay, I kind of get it. But then when you actually have a session where you can walk through the stuff individually, it makes a big difference. Then we also have, in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, weekly mentorship. And just like I said with mentoring, that's more of the how-to stuff. And by the way, mentoring times two, those are like non-urgent questions you may have in the business. So if you were to ask me something to the effect of, hey, Rob, I hear a lot about disclosures and contingencies, but can you explain what that really means? That would be something I would cover in a mentoring session. Hey, we're approaching maybe the holiday season, or we're approaching summer or something like that. What's some lead generation tips that will really be effective? That would be something we would go ahead and we would approach in there. As one of my fellow agents kind of jokes around, she says, if you're not bleeding out, then it can be handled in a text or an email. And by the same token, I can also address those in a coaching session. Now, if it's something you need right then, and it's something like, hey, I have a question when I'm putting together this, should I ask the buyer this question or this question? You can still text me or email me, because that's something that either I can point you in the right direction, but obviously it's not an urgent thing. If it's something where you're in front of the client, and it really helps if you're texting me to put like 911 in front of it so I know it's an emergency, then I either try and get to it or I try and get you to the resource to it right then and there, because you are in that. But at the same token, you have to use your own judgment. So let's say you're showing a buyer a home and they're looking at where the laundry should be, and they're saying, oh, I don't see an electric hookup for an electric dryer. If that's not an urgent question, you know, that's something that can be emailed or text to me, even though the client's right in front of you, because that's not urgent. But if it's something where you're at the home and all of a sudden you open up the Supra, which is the lockbox for realtors, and the keys aren't there and you need to know what to do, that may be a little bit more urgent. So that would be something that you would then put the 911 on and let me know, like, hey, I need to talk to you now. But the mentoring sessions, what happens is that we have those and then we address those in the mentor call, and those do get recorded, and then those go into the recorded library. So if you notice, the flowchart shows it goes into recorded content, and those become available to you as resources. So I can tell you the past couple of weeks, we've covered everything from disclosures and contingencies, which are in the contracts, to lead generation, to, well, do you do an offer? Do you not do an offer when you're working with a buyer and the property seems overpriced? And then even something very specific called escalation clauses, which is a little bit advanced, but in our office, because we work with a higher clientele, sometimes we have to address. And so I even address those in the coaching call, and then that's made available to people. Then in addition to that, some of the other things we have are different contract classes available, and that's what we ask you to attend. Some of those can be in our office. Some of them are current broker, Rich Pisani, who's a great guy. He actually is broker for a couple of offices. So sometimes when he's doing it, it may be through another office, but the contract for California is the contract. So it doesn't matter if it comes from our office, Rich Pisani teaching at another office, or from CAR itself, or from GLAR itself. It can come from any of those things, but you need to be in a contract class. Don't depend on coaching to teach you everything about the contract, because there's better experts on the contract than me. This is how we look at it. I am not the library, I'm more the librarian. So I will not, because there's no way anybody can know everything about real estate. All of us are learning new things all the time. In fact, about a month ago, something came up in real estate, and Joey and I were both like, wow, we didn't know that. And we said that, and we had 5 other people immediately say on the same call, yeah, neither did we. And it's just the thing, we're always learning. Everybody's always learning. But I try and be the librarian, where I can point you to the right direction. So there's going to be some things that I will actually say, hey, this is a great resource, or hey, go to this, and then you can find out. In that, I mentioned Cam earlier. Cam has put together an incredible website just for the agents here in the office, and that'll be in your intro materials. That really is a great resource. I go to the vendor list all the time when I need to get a quick vendor. Oh, do I need to do mold inspections? Bingo. I go to the list and we have a bunch of vendors on there. And then that way I don't even have to call or ask anybody. I have it right then and there. Another one is that we periodically offer Ignite. And guess what? It ignites your career. That's why we call it that. And the reason why we do that is because we get the fact that, hey, what do you need? And so Keller Williams offers Ignite. Now, Ignite is designed, and when I teach my Ignite classes, I say this all the time. Keller Williams has to make all their teaching materials to be national, to cover all different demographics, to cover all different types of approaches to real estate. So the great thing is that when you get it taught by our agents in our office, you get things that are very specific to our demographic, very specific to how a lot of us do real estate here. And then on top of it too, you get a lot of tips and tricks in there, people that have, let you know that, hey, this is what really has worked for them. And I will say too, that's one of the unique things about Keller Williams Larchmont. A lot of offices have a struggle getting people to teach those classes. And a lot of times they get the same person teaching all the classes. Our office isn't that way. We have a lot of different people willing to teach the classes and offer you much different insights. In fact, there's a lot of times I will take the class from somebody and listen to it, because I will have the video for it, and I'll do it like when I'm at the gym or something and listen to it, because these are experts in their field. And so when they're teaching it, they'll give you their insights, and I want to learn what those insights are. And then lastly is, hey, I'm the coach and I need to talk to you, Rob. So we have a little way of doing that, because we have a number of people in coaching. And if everybody wanted to talk to me, let's say we have right now 30 people in coaching, and everybody wants to talk to me for about half an hour, and they all want to talk to me on Wednesday. We'll do the math. That's 15 hours straight in a row. That means I don't even have time to make any more coffee or use the restroom. So that's not a very workable situation. So what we want to do is have reasonable expectations on both sides, because I want to be available to you. And one of the things is that I mentioned the idea, if something can be answered in a text or in an email, then please address it that way. And I will do that all the time. I've had people all day long today, different people ask me different questions here and there. Hey, I'm putting together this, or what do you think of this, or all of that kind of thing. And I'll respond to it because it's not urgent and no problem. But if there's something you need to sit down with me one-on-one, I'm going to ask you first, is it in something that's been addressed already? So let's say you were to say, well, I want to help you to put together the GPS 411. Okay, great. Have you watched the video on it? No. Well, first watch the video. And then first, please put together on the template what you think your GPS 411 would be. Then let's meet and figure out a time and go over it together. Because then that best utilizes both times. Then you have a chance to go through the information if it happens to be that, and then we get to go together. Same thing, if it was like, hey, well, I have a question on the contract. Okay, well, what's your question? Well, On the contingencies, there's a little section in which it looks like it can change what it can be. What does that mean? Okay, well, did you go to the car website and look up some of the help information? No. Do that first, then let's sit down and talk about what that means. So that's even some of the times I'll point you into some of the, I'll be the librarian, pointing you to people who that's all they do is teach us and do this for a living. And then you and I can go over it one-on-one together, because then that helps you to learn. Again, I'm here to be the coach. That helps you to learn and helps you to reach your goals, and also equips you in the future to be able to find the answers yourself. But then when it comes to something that you really do need the one-on-one time with, yes, I'm more than happy to schedule that time with you. And if you want to do it on a Zoom call, usually it's a phone call, but even if it has to be one-on-one, no problem. I try and make myself available in the office at least a couple of days during the week. And by the way, speaking of GPS 411, you'll notice in the middle, there's that blue section. And again, if you want to do a one-on-one with the GPS 411, let's say that's one of the things you need, then that's when I kind of insist, watch the video. Make sure you go through that first. Then on top of it, then we can schedule a time, and then we can figure out what maybe some of your personal GPS 411 is. And by the way, our Connect team, that little app I was mentioning, can be customized to what some of your goals may be. So we can look at that once we get some of those things together, and then we can get together with Cam and figure out, well, what is the best way that maybe we can even customize your electronic accountability to reflect what some of your goals are. So that's coaching broken down in a flowchart that kind of shows you how it's all working and how we run things here at Keller Williams Largemont. So advantages of KW Largemont coaching, because guess what? We're not the only ones who do coaching. I'm going to be very upfront about that. And if you were to ask me, I would tell you what I feel some of the good coaching programs out there are, and what some of the poor coaching programs are. In fact, one of them that I'm thinking of specifically isn't really coaching. It's more training. They're just calling themselves coaches, and they tell you this is what you need to do, and they're a cookie cutter place. I didn't fit in very well with that because I wasn't the person that they needed to cookie cut. My approach to real estate was very different from theirs, so that wasn't a good fit. But there are some things, other options that are out there, and sometimes they're bigger companies, sometimes they're individuals. Well, what's the advantage of us doing coaching? Why are we doing that here? Well, there's a number of advantages. First is we're not a broad general coaching, again, that's doing coaching in the Carolinas, in New England area, in the Midwest, in Hawaii, although I'd like to do coaching in Hawaii. We're not doing that. We're doing here specific to our demographic here in Southern California, in the LA area even more. And so our coaching reflects that. Well, what does that mean? That means that some of the resources we talk about, some of our approaches, that's what we deal with. For instance, somebody asked me just the other day, well, what about FSBOs, Rob, which is for sale by owners? That's a nickname for them. FSBO, FSBO, for sale by owner. And I said, okay, let me talk to you briefly about that. And I'm going to talk super briefly about it because we don't see that a lot in California. We really don't. It's just one of those things that don't make that a huge part of what you think your business is going to be, because it's really not that much here. Most people in California know that they need some sort of agent to help them buy or sell a home. However, you can go in other parts of the country and you see a lot more FSBOs. So in those areas, they would focus them more. Again, our coaching is specific to our area and our demographic. But then also how you pay for coaching is a breakdown of that. Because other coaching programs out there, they will charge you for group coaching a certain amount every month. Well, what if I don't show up? Doesn't matter. They charge you a certain amount every month. Oh, well, what if I don't do a deal? Doesn't matter. They charge you a certain amount every month. Oh, well, what about, no what abouts? They charge you a certain amount every month, period. And most of them have contracts. So guess what, sunshine? If you sign a 6-month contract or usually a year-long contract, you have to pay that because you signed a contract. And some of them, it's like, well, what if I want one-on-one time? Oh, that's a different type of coaching. Usually that's twice as much. as group coaching. And again, what if? Nope, no what ifs. Guess what? That's how much it is. And well, I don't show up. Yep, that's pretty much how it is. In fact, I even have a coach, and I have my coach for 30 minutes every Monday. That's when I meet with her. And they charge me $1,000 a month for the coaching. And is it worth it? Yeah, she knows what she's talking about. And I look forward to that call. I really do. And is she available for email too? Yes, she's been available for email. She'll even, help with other things like that. But that one-on-one time, it literally is just 30 minutes every week. And when we're up at that 30 minutes, it's like, wow, the time flew and we're done. And what if I can't make it on a Monday? Well, it still costs the same. So the great thing about Keller Williams Largemont is that you only pay for coaching for when you close a deal. What happens is that you're involved in the program, and then when you have a deal, as you know, there's a commission. And coming into real estate, you've already been taught now that it's all commission based, and you split the commission with the office. So in coaching, we approach it the same way, where when you close a deal, you split that commission with the office. So here's the actual coaching contract, because everybody's like, well, what does that mean? How does that look? And all that sort of thing. So this is a contract, and this is what you sign for coaching, and everything's very upfront. If you notice, right down there, it'll say under C, because this is what I always get asked. So I'm just going to start talking about it now. Underneath C, you'll see that the coaching is set up where it's a split. And I can walk you through all of this different stuff. But what it boils down to is that because it's Brian did an excellent job, who is, by the way, our MCA in the office, which means he's the market center administrator. But he broke it down into an example. An agent would receive a gross commission of $10,000. The commission is first subject to an 80-20 split, and then another 80-20 split. So bottom line, by the time everything is said and done, your commission, after paying the brokerage, which you would be paying anyway, and then paying for coaching, your split is $6,400. And then you could easily, in our office, actually the commission would average more around $20,000. So then you would double everything. But that's the thing about coaching, and the way we have it set up is then you pay when you actually make money, which is a much better way of doing it, because all the other systems of coaching, you're paying whether you're making money or not. And here you pay if you make money. And then of course there's a cap to it. You've already learned with Keller Williams Largemont, there's a cap. So once you reach that cap, you're done paying into it. And same thing with here. Once you reach that cap, you're done paying into it. So it's not like in perpetuity. Nope, you're going to have a cap. Yearly, everybody in Keller Williams has a cap. In fact, I capped just this last July. And so from that point on, my commissions immediately after that, I kept 100% of my commission. So we make coaching the same approach in the same way. Now you can also see in this, it covers some of the expectations for both training and following up and showing up and so forth. That's part in there. But I bring up the contract because this is what everybody asks me about all the time. So I want everything up front, so everything's on the table. You can see here too, at the back part, we ask for certain information, so that way we have your contact information. Another thing